Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we're going to keep looking at Magic 2012, and we're going to move on and look at Grab for Power, which is a black and blue deck. So let's look at the deck list. So we've got 19 creatures, 5 sorceries, 5 artifacts, which is a bit odd in a core set deck, but we'll explore why that is. Single enchantment, 5 instants, and 25 land, and mana curve off to the side there. So the foil face rare of the deck is Runescarred Demon. So 5 and 2 black for a 6/6 flyer. When it ends the battlefield, you search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is a really cool design. I really like it. It's a big demon that when you play it, literally does demonic tutor, like it replicates that spell. And there's a reason for that. That's a reason why it's a really good foil face rare in this deck, is because you are trying to assemble a specific set of cards, which I think is like a really cool theme for a core set deck. Try and teach kind of new players about combos and synergies and specific card interactions. I think it's pretty cool. Also the fact that it's just a big 6/6 flyer as well. Obviously doesn't hurt either. Just in case the combo doesn't work out, you've got a big flying beat stick. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good rare to have. We have 2 reassembling skeletons, 1 and a black for a 1/1. You can pay 1 and a black to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, yep, this is like a really good, obviously, like recursive creature. Do I like it more than Drudge Skeletons? Drudge Skeletons is obviously only 1 black mana regeneration, but this, you don't have to have the black mana open at the time. You can do this later on, I suppose. You get the death triggers of it dying, which matters actually with death triggers because we're coming into Innistrad where there's going to be Morbid. So I like reassembling Skeletons. Good. It's just a good like stalling creature, isn't it, to have? And then we've got 2 Child Knight, just 1 and a black for a 2/1 lifelink. Yep, we've seen Child Knight loads of times. Yep, it's perfectly fine. We have a single drifting shade, so 3 and a black for a 1/1 flyer. It's a shade, so you can spend black mana to give it +1/+1 turn 10. It's okay, expensive, but it's okay that it's a shade with this ability. At least it already has like evasion, so it can get through after you've pumped it up. We have a single devouring swarm, 1 and 2 black for a 2/1 flyer. You can sacrifice a creature to give it +1/+1 till end of turn. So there's not a huge number of creature cards in the deck, but as we'll see from the other rare in this deck, there's actually a pretty good source of token creatures. So then this can fly over. It's a shame it's not a +1/+1 counter, but then I think that would bump it up to uncommon. But I think it's fine. The artwork of this always like this was obviously years and years before Amonkhet, but the art for this really made me want an ancient Egypt set, obviously because they're all a bunch of spooky scarabs. But yeah, we eventually got Amonkhet, and it was everything I wanted. And really can't wait to talk about Amonkhet, even though that's quite a way off. We got to get through all these intro decks first before we get into the Planeswalker decks. Anyway. Single Gravedigger, again, another classic core set card. 3 and black for a 2/2. When it ends the battlefield, you get a creature from your graveyard back to your hand. Yep, it's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Then a couple of vanilla creatures. So we've got 3 Warpath Ghouls and 2 Zombie Goliaths. These are, okay, Warpath Ghoul is, I think, better. Because Zombie Goliath is, like, not well costed for its stats, I think. I think if the Goliath was a 4/4, be fine. But it just feels very frail with only 3 toughness. But these are here kind of just to fill space. I think there's much better choices, but yeah, it's fine. Got to have some filler in a core set deck, I suppose, to teach deck building. Anyway, so then the blue creatures. So we got 2 Belltower Sphinx, so another good defensive creature, and this is a nice reprint actually from Ravnica. So 4 and a blue for a 2/5 flyer. Whenever a source deals damage to Belltower Sphinx, that source's controller mills that many cards. So that's a really good deterrent. I think people usually very reluctant to attack into this. The fact that it's got 5 toughness means that it is pretty beefy. Belltower Sphinx is a good inclusion here. Maybe a little expensive, but it comes down. It usually ends up staying down because it's just hard to shift. And if necessary, it does fly, I suppose. So we've got 2 Azure Mage, so 1 and a blue for a 2/1. You pay 3 and a blue, draw a card, so like really good mana sink. If you've just you can do this more than once a turn. obviously the game's going on, but being able to draw multiple cards is really good. This is a deck that really likes this effect because, like I said, you're trying to assemble a specific set of 3 cards. So being able to have this ability where you can just keep drawing cards to find them is pretty good. And at the end of the day, it's still just it's just 2-1 for 2, which is fine if it absolutely needs to get into combat. We've got 2 Murfolk Looters. 1 in the blue for a 1/1. Yep, classic looter. Tap, you draw a card, then discard a card. Again, another source of card draw, which is good, so you can search up your specific set of cards. Which are these? Which are the Empire artifacts? So I'm going to do full disclosure now. I know this is a very janky combo. However, I really like this. I have a lot of nostalgia around these Empire artifacts. I've tried to make them work in constructed, and they don't because they're very fragile and expensive to try and assemble. But when 1 in 10 times it works. It feels pretty good. So you have Crown of Empires, Scepter of Empires, and Throne of Empires as the other rare. So it's really cool actually that I think that the rare in one of these core set decks is an artifact. Actually, I think it's pretty cool. But right, so the whole deal with these Empire artifacts is that on their own they sort of do an effect that's not so impressive. But if you have the other 2 out, then the effect becomes a lot more impressive. So Crown of Empires lets you tap a creature, which is for 3 mana, which is very, very expensive. But if you have Scepter and Throne, then you gain control of that creature instead, which is pretty good, like a repeatable mind control effect. Scepter of Empires just does 1 damage to a player, but if you have the Crown and the Throne, it does 3 damage instead. So then it's like it's not like Bolt, is it? Because it can't hit creatures, but it does reliable 3 damage for no mana investment. So it's kind of like a bigger, I guess, Rod of Ruin, I suppose. And then a single Throne of Empires, which is makes a soldier token, but if you have the Crown and the Scepter, then it makes 5 tokens instead. So if you got all 3 of these out, firstly, well done, and you managed to keep them out. Then every turn you're gaining control of something, you're doing 3 damage to an opponent, and you're making 5 tokens. And it's pretty hard to lose when you're when you're doing that, when you're adding that much to your own board, you're doing damage to the opponent, and you're taking away their creatures as well. So this is a really fun theme. I'm really happy that this deck uses this as its kind of as its theme, as these Empire artifacts. I think they're pretty great. I have a lot of nostalgia for these, and have definitely tried to make this work in a constructed deck, but it just doesn't. I do admit that it is a very janky combo, but I think in terms of like a teaching tool as well, again for new players, this is this is like combo 101, right? Because it literally tells like a new player, like, right, you need these other 2 cards out to make this one better. And I don't know, that sort of introduced them to the fact that, like, hey, look, Magic is a game full of like synergies and combinations, and here's one to kind of get you started. Now go and explore and like find other other interactions and stuff. So in that regard, I think it's pretty fun. I just really like it when cards refer to other specific cards. I don't know why, I just really like that. I really like the Caldra equipment from Mirrodin as well. In M14 we've got the Bog Brew Witch, like with the Newt and the Cauldron. I really like that as well. I don't know. So I really like these artifacts, even though I will happily admit they are not great, but I still really like them. And then moving on to the rest of the deck, so we've got 3 Doomblades, which is really good actually to have 3 of these. Just 1 black to destroy a non-black creature. Really just excellent removal. A single Sorin's Thirst, 2 black to do 2 damage to a creature and you gain 2 life. It's fine. And a single Brink of Disaster, 2 and 2 black for an aura that goes on a creature or land, and when it becomes tapped, it gets destroyed. I find this a bit dirtly, honestly, because they could, if you put this on a creature, they can still like block with it, I suppose. Does nothing to a creature with the vigilance. This is an easy switch out. It's just expensive. Like, you'd rather just have Doomblade, I think. But I suppose it has its uses. But it's just a bit too slow and dirtly for my liking. Single Disentomb, just to get creatures from your graveyard back to your hand, and a Frost Breath, so 2 in the blue, to tap down 2 creatures and they don't untap during their next untap step. Really like these kind of like freeze effects, and I think it kind of plays into the deck what they think the deck wants to do, which is kind of stall out until you get all the artifacts out. Just kind of keep the board clear or locked down. I have a single diabolic tutor, so it's another tutor effect. Two and two black to search for any card put into hand. So yeah, that's another way of getting one of the missing Empire artifacts. Two divinations, just so you can draw some cards and hopefully find the Empire artifacts. And ponder, where you look at the top 3 cards of your library, you can put them back in any order. You may shuffle and then you draw one. So it's doing a lot really for like 1 mana. But again, this is just another way to kind of maybe manipulate the top of your deck, or if none of them are like the Empire artifacts, you can just put them back, shuffle, and then still draw. So yeah, I like ponder. And then this is interesting that the core set deck has a non-basic land in it. So Buried Ruin. So taps give you 1 colorless, or you can pay 2 tap, sacrifice it, return an artifact from your graveyard back to your hand. So there's not obviously a lot of artifact destruction in these core set decks, like if you were playing them against each other. But there's some, like I think there's the occasional Naturalize or Manic Vandal kicking around. So I like that this has been included as kind of like contingency, just in case like say like the Throne of Empires or gets destroyed. Like at least there is a option in the deck to get it back. I mean, like admittedly it's 1 card, but at least that's in there. And again, it's I think it's good to show this to new players and be like, oh look, it's not just swamps, islands, mountains, and so forth. Like there are other lands that do other things that have other utility effects. So yeah, I think again it's another good teaching tool, I think. And then 14 swamps and 10 islands. So what could have been? So overall, I do think the deck. I love the deck's theme, the Empire artifacts. There's a bit too much reliance, I think, on kind of like the vanilla creatures. Like you got the Warpath Ghoul, and you got the Zombie Goliath. I would have liked this if this had gone in more of a control direction. So Smallpox, I think, would have been good, like 2 black mana. Basically, everyone loses 1 life, discards a card, sacrifice a creature, and sacrifices the land. And you can, with the deck, you can manipulate it so this doesn't hit you as much as it does your opponent. Ether Adept, just a 2/2 that has a bounce effect. That would have been, I think, pretty good. Just to, again, like, disrupt an opponent's tempo, like, just mess up their kind of what they're trying to do while you can, like, you're frantically getting these artifacts together. Alternate rare, maybe instead of the Rune-Scarred Demon, because we've got to keep the throne. We've got to keep the Throne of Empires. I was thinking Vengeful Pharaoh. So it's 2 and triple black, which is admittedly not maybe great in a 2-color deck. 5/4 with Death Touch. Whenever combat damage is dealt to you or a planeswalker you control, if Vengeful Pharaoh is in your graveyard, you destroy an attacking creature, and then Vengeful Pharaoh goes back on top of your library. So it's a really cool card, I think. It's a really fun design and very flavorful, I think. I think the main reason I suggested it is just because I think it fits really well with the theme of the Empire artifacts. Like, you're assembling this crown and scepter and throne, and this is the ruler who uses them. That would be the theme. But I do think Rune-Scarred Demon is like a perfectly good rare, and I think of it probably better in the long run, just because it's a big 6/6 flyer and also tutors up the specific card you want. So. But I just want to talk about Vengeful Pharaoh because I think it's a pretty cool card. And again, this with the Devouring Swarm, made me really want the Ancient Egypt deck, Ancient Egypt set, which I know we did get, but yeah. So in summary, I actually quite like this one, just because I have so much nostalgia for those Empire artifacts. And again, I'm fully aware it's not a great set of cards, but I do really like it. I think there's like some pretty solid like control and removal options in the deck. I have actually played this one out of the deck because years ago when M12 was new, friends and I were at a anime convention in London, and we had we had some time between events, so there was a vendor who was selling Magic the Gathering, so I bought this deck, a friend bought another, and we just played a couple of games there, and I played this one out of the box and I actually had a pretty good time with it. So yeah, I have a personal connection with this one. But yeah, so I quite like it. But what are your thoughts on the deck after seeing it? You any thoughts, stories, comments, opinions? What are your thoughts on the Empire artifacts, or just cards that reference like the self-contained combos? Really like to hear what people's opinions are on those. But yeah, we're done looking at this one, so I'll be back next time. Going to look at another M12 intro pack. But until then, thanks for watching and listening. Have a great day.